Hey guys, it's me. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back. Can you believe it? Neither can I, but anyway, I'm here, that's what matters. Today, I am delighted to bring you my book discussion video of the Iliad by Homer. I am very excited, to say the least, okay? This is just an excuse for me to simp over Homer, honestly, without being a nuisance to everyone around me, because I can tell you, my friends and family, they've had it up to here with all my bullshit. So today we're going to discuss it. I am going to be telling you what, in my opinion, makes it so great, and my personal experience while reading it, what I personally loved so much about it, like what about it made it a wonderful book for me, right? Because this is the fucking Iliad. We know that it's a great work of literature. We know that it is this, that, and the other, but I thought that I would add more of a personal dimension to it by explaining what worked for me and what really made me connect with this poem. And I'll also be giving you kind of like a short, very brief explanation of what the Iliad is, a little bit of context and brief plot summary, so you can still follow along even if you haven't read the Iliad. Because I understand that this can come across as a very fucking intimidating book. It's the fucking Iliad. But I guarantee that it is not as scary as it's cracked up to be. Before we start, I would like to shout out a channel. Now, I know that my channel is really small, but if I can even send one person her way, I'll take that. I'll take that, okay? She deserves so much more exposure. The name of the channel is Moaning. It is run by this lovely woman called Erica, who is a classicist who makes video about the ancient Greeks and the Romans and all their mythology. And this girl is stupidly underrated, and she's so funny and entertaining. She also, makes book reviews and stuff like that, so, BookTube could also benefit from watching her videos. And I swear this girl single-handedly got me to read the Iliad. She made like this entire Iliad series where she goes through every book of the Iliad, every chapter if you want, explaining it. And I found myself watching 2 of those explanation videos and being like, right, I need to see this for myself. There's no way this shit is this entertaining. And lo and behold, it was. And I read the Iliad, and then I went back to her channel and binged watched the entire playlist. If she's seen her watch time just skyrocket in the week after I've read the Iliad, that would be why. That would be me. Anyway, I'm gonna link her channel down below. Please check her out. She needs more attention. Her channel is just fantastic. Anyway, let's continue with the video. Let's actually start it this time. There are going to be kind of like spoilers, I guess, but they're not really spoilers because Homer tells us right at the beginning of the poem what is gonna happen, who dies. So if at some point I'm like, when Patroclus dies, when Hector dies, that's not actually a spoiler. Homer literally tells us who's gonna die, so it's not really a shock to anyone. So we're gonna start by giving you a bit of context of the Iliad before we start. The Iliad takes a really tiny smidgen of the Trojan War. That's it. This is the book. If you do read it, you might be slightly put off by the ending because it's not the end of the war. The Iliad is actually only one poem in this group of poems called the Epic Cycle, and the only ones that survive are the Iliad and the Odyssey. And all of these poems were originally orally told, orally performed as entertainment, and the only ones that survived are the ones that were written down by Homer, so there were probably a lot more versions. But anyway, it tells the story of the Trojan War. If you're not familiar with the Trojan War, it started because Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, was stolen by Paris, right? A Trojan. Helen was originally promised to Menelaus, a Spartan, and the Greeks at the time when they were all competing for Helen were like, okay, if someone tries to take her after one of us has won her fair and square, we're gonna go after that son of a bitch. So they all agree on this, and none of the Greeks really misbehave, except that then we have the famous judgment of Paris, right? Where the 3 goddesses, Athene, Hera, and Aphrodite, go to Paris and they're like, hey, which one of us is the most beautiful? And they all start bribing him, and then Aphrodite is like, hey, listen, if it's me, you get Helen. Paris gets Helen and refuses to give her back, even though it's caused a very bloody war. And we, in the Iliad, pick up in the middle of this war, and it opens with the wrath of Achilles. You're gonna figure out why I'm laughing in a minute. Achilles, our hero, right, is in a bit of a strop because Agamemnon, king of the Greeks, has decided to take his war prize because he's had to give his own war prize back because he's angered Apollo. It's a whole thing. And so he's like, right, okay, well then I'll take Achilles' prize, I guess. And then Achilles is like, wait, fuck no, I don't want that. Which, by the way, when I say war prize, I mean woman, right? An actual human being, woman, war prize, sex slave, probably. That's what they're fighting about, you know? I would like to start ranting about how problematic that is, but again, I mean, it's like, it was a different time, clearly, a very different time. But then Achilles goes like, yeah, if you take my war prize, I'm not gonna fight. And he proceeds to sulk for 18 out of 24 books. Excuse me. Now, it might all seem that he's like a spoiled brat, but don't worry, it gets worse. This dude literally just cries to his mother and stays in his tent. And that's it. And all of the other characters have to fight the war for him. And on top of that, he asks his mother Thetis to ask Zeus to favor the Trojans so that the Greek army will see how badly they need Achilles. I hate him so much, and I don't stop hating him. I don't even stop hating him when he's mourning Patroclus, okay? I feel sorry for him, but I still hate him. We follow everyone else's involvement in the Trojan War. We see death, we see suffering, we see the gods get involved, and by that I mean that they are bored, so they just intervene into the Trojan War. Achilles only comes out of his little fucking hut when Patroclus dies. I mean, bro, you had it coming. Like, I swear. Anyway. Alright, so now we get to the point where I talk about what I love about this book. Because even though I seem very angry about Achilles, which I am, it's part of why I loved it so much, right? The fact that one character can get me this riled up is for me like a sign of a good book. So the first thing I am going to be discussing is the characters, right? The characters, I think, is the main aspect of this book that I enjoyed the most. So there are a fuck ton of characters. Homer still manages to make them do and say exactly the right things that will make us, the readers, really connect with them. He displays very human moments of honor, hatred, love, or very just wholesome average moments. I can't help thinking about this part where I think it's Idomeneus, one of the warriors who, you know, just goes back for a spear, and then he says to his other Greek soldier friend whose name I've forgotten, I'm just coming back for a spear, because this other guy is like, whoa shit, why are you back? I'm like really worried about you. And he's like, no, I'm just getting a spear. Don't worry, I'm going to fight. Like, I still want you to think highly of me. And I had never seen these two characters before, or if I did, they kind of went over my head because I really struggled with the names. And after that, I was like, I care about them now. I don't want them to die. They're so nice to each other. Homer just manages, out of all the possible moments to ever exist, pick the right ones to make us connect to the characters and want them to stay alive. So we're going to discuss the gods and the heroes, okay? Because the gods they were something. Don't ever let anyone tell you that the Iliad is boring or dull, because the gods made this the funniest piece of literature I've ever fucking read in my entire life. While they are immortal, they're so eccentric and human and funny and entertaining. So they can sometimes be written as these almighty powerful gods. They're also written to be petty and squabble and kind of get into these dumb arguments with each other, and they're driven as well by their emotion like humans, and it's fantastic. Do you need any convincing? Okay, there's one part where Zeus, in response to finding Hera, his wife, very hot, proceeds to list off every single woman he slept with that isn't her. And you've got to know that Hera gets very angry about Zeus cheating on her, okay? He lists all of these women off, and then he's like, but right now, you're hotter than them. And that's his way of paying Hera a compliment. Another one of my really good moments is we get a reference to the myth of how Hephaestus, I never know how to pronounce his name, Hephaestus became lame, and that is because Hera threw him off of Mount Olympus because she thought he was an ugly baby, and she was like, I don't want this. What? This shouldn't make me laugh so much, but I mean, it's full of these things, because don't worry, there's loads more where that came from. These gods just made this story so entertaining, and I am so here for it. I loved it so much. So yeah, the gods, we just see them get involved because they're bored. Sometimes what dictates their involvement isn't necessarily their values, it's how they feel towards a certain god who values the Trojans, and so they're going to be like, aha, in that case I'm going to favor the Greeks. And that just show you how fucking insanely powerful of a role they had, because they could afford to have their pettiness and just their stupid little feelings dictate life and death. And that, when you read it, you're just like, I cannot believe that you did this because you're mad at Hera. This whole time, it just had me shocked. Anyway, let's talk about the heroes, shall we? Because, oh boy, do I have a lot to say. So let's start with my two favorites. If you can't tell, they're really not my favorites. Achilles and Agamemnon. Now, okay, Agamemnon, nobody likes him, okay? Nobody fucking likes Agamemnon. Though I've got to say, for such a vile character, he does still get some redeeming moments, but then you find out that he is like kind of a bad person, so you know, it's not really shocking. But Achilles, most people, me included, tend to believe that, you know, oh, this great hero, what can possibly be wrong about him? And the first time that I very shallowly, very kind of half-assed read the Iliad for university, and by that I mean I read Spark Notes, and the only thing I remember from that time in my life kind of reading the Iliad is that Achilles was incredibly frustrating. I've been over this in the beginning of the video. I just got so upset reading about him when I remembered that he existed, because I mean, he's not there most of the time. Like, it's very easy for you to forget that Achilles is a character in the Iliad. And what I find so wonderful about the Iliad is that while we're supposed to be rooting for the Greeks, and we have these characters within the Greek camp, these very important characters, mind you, that we are given the freedom to dislike. And that's such a wonderful thing, because even though while I was reading this, I really wanted the Greeks to win, there were characters in the Greek camps that I despised. And then I would go read about the Trojan camp, you know, and what goes on the other side, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, Hector is not that bad. This was a very nice way of kind of painting the fact that it's not just black and white, guys. There's good and bad people on each side of the conflict. It's not just Greek good, Trojans bad, okay? Paris is bad, but not all of them are assholes. Most of them are just fighting there because they have to, they don't have a choice. And on the Greek side, not all of them are fighting out of solidarity for Menelaus. A lot of them are maybe doing it for glory, some of them are doing it because they have to and they made a pact. Some of them are purely there out of the goodness of their heart. And there was just so much nuance within these heroes. Me just having this rage against Achilles, you know, it wasn't, obviously it's kind of like annoying to get angry, but where it was just kind of enjoyable for me to have this experience where I had the freedom to get very angry at Achilles. So we have all these unlikable characters, right? We have Agamemnon, we have Achilles, but we also have to some extent Patroclus that I didn't like that much. Because keep in mind, who was staying with Achilles when he locked himself in his little hut? It was Patroclus, his best friend slash lover slash whatever. I obviously like bad for Patroclus dying, because, you know, towards the end he does realize that they have jeopardized the safety of all of their friends who they've been fighting next to for years, while Achilles just stays in his tent and is like, ha, no, fuck you guys. Patroclus allows this for a big part of the book, but then he's like, Achilles, mate, are you sure we should be doing this? Because all our friends are dying. And it is this selflessness and this compassion and, you know, this moral duty, I guess, that leads him to die, which is why, in my opinion, it makes him a redeemable character. Whereas Achilles, in my opinion, okay, he comes out in book 18, but that is because Patroclus died, and he is so sad that Patroclus died. And while this is, yeah, it's noble to grieve, I guess, I don't know, it's all for the wrong reasons. Achilles does not fight for the Greeks, for his friends. He fights because he is sad. He fights because he personally wants revenge. And that, to me, is the defining difference between Patroclus and Achilles. Patroclus was a kind person. Achilles' slave, right, the one who Agamemnon took, literally says to us that Patroclus was always the kindest to her. We learned that he was kind to the horses. We just learned that he was a very good soul, and so it makes sense that what would drive him out of the camp would be compassion. But Achilles, it's purely selfish. So this is Barbara from the future. I look different because I've lost a part of my footage. I'm so sorry if that annoys you. It's probably worse for me because I need to film this again. So now that I've finished my daily Achilles rant, let's talk about some of the other characters. There are a few characters that I actually really liked. So for example, we all know Odysseus, right? We all know him. If you don't, you know Ulysses, and that is the same person. So we all know Odysseus. But do we all know about Diomedes? Because that man doesn't get enough credit. I had literally never heard of this guy. Like, I had seen his name vaguely when I skim read the Iliad for the first time, but I never really picked up on any of the things he did. But let me tell you, that man is the biggest badass in all of fiction that has ever been written. I am convinced. Again, do you need some examples? Sure, I will be delighted to give them to you. So, let's just get the very impressive thing out of the way. He stabs Aphrodite, who is a goddess, mind you, okay? He stabs fucking Aphrodite, and then he isn't like, this is a bit dangerous, like I just stabbed a god, maybe I should lay low. No, he stabs Ares. Ares is the god of war, and he's supposed to be a scary man. Granted, he doesn't do much in this poem, like apart from going back up to Mount Olympus to cry to Zeus, and then Zeus says that he's a shady hypocrite anyway and he shouldn't be complaining. But anyway, that's beside the point. Ares is the god of war and Diomedes is immortal, and after harming Aphrodite, he goes and throws his fucking spear at Ares, who howls in pain, and the entire fucking planet can hear him scream. And this guy just continues fighting. That was example number 1. Example number 2, him and Odysseus, they sneak up on the Trojans in the middle of the night, and while Odysseus is kind of trying to think of a plan of what they could do, Diomedes just kind of does his own thing and kills any sleeping Trojan that he comes across. This man, first of all, he's an absolute beast on the battlefield, which is, it's fair, you're a warrior. I get that you're gonna want to fight, but was it really necessary to kill like 15 Trojans who were just asleep? Like, bro, I feel like there's some underlying issues that we might want to explore here. He's just such a badass, and he is very much a very calm man, unless he's, killing people. Even if people talk shit to him, if people disrespect him, he just stays calm, gives them a badass reply, and moves on with his life and goes on to kill more people, which, again, coolest man I've ever read about in my life, okay? So that's enough positivity. Let's talk about Paris. Okay, so let's talk about some of the Trojans, and we'll get Paris out of the way first because, ew. I've got to say though, to his credit, I hated Paris in a way where I was very entertained by him, I hated Paris, but I could not wait for the next Paris section of the Iliad to come up because I was like, oh my god, I'm so ready to hate on him. So it was that kind of hatred that I had for the man, and it's going to become abundantly clear why in a minute if you are not familiar with the entire story. So first of all, I don't care how horny you are, I don't care how long it's been since you felt the touch of a woman. I feel like common sense would have you give her back, like when you see all your friends dying and you're like, yeah, but I get to get laid with the most beautiful woman in the world, and that's what kind of wins, I'm just like, Paris, are you a fucking moron? And to be fair, I'm not the only one who thinks this. Like, every single character, and I mean like pretty much everyone, openly tells Paris how much they hate him. So Hector multiple times is like, bro, I wish you were dead. Keep in mind they're brothers, that he's like, you sex-crazed beast, you should never have been alive. And I'm just like, that's a very good point. Helen also is like, dude, I wish I was dead, but you know what, I also wish that you were dead, because in this way we could never be in the situation. And then even Priam at some point is like, bro, you're the one who should have died, like what the fuck. Because yes, Paris is also like a bad fighter. At first I kind of like assumed that he would have some level of skill given his determination in keeping Helen and starting this entire war, but no. There is this one scene where he is supposed to duel Menelaus. If you remember, Menelaus was supposed to be Helen's husband. So is these two men kind of dueling over Helen. And after all the rules for the duel have been set up, Paris, he shits himself as he sees Menelaus. He shits himself and pieces the fuck out. And I'm just here like, wait, that's it? So yeah, this is just my thoughts on Paris. Everyone hates him. I'm not special for hating Paris. And for those of you who are about to tell me, wait, Barbara, no, like Helen actually loves Paris. No, she doesn't. She does not. That was just in the movie Troy. She hates Paris, so there you go. Now, if we're about to talk about some of the other Trojans, right, there's obviously Hector, who is supposed to be Troy's most powerful warrior and most skilled fighter. And to be honest, I never really knew how I felt about Hector. And I guess this is the beauty of the book, but I was just extremely confused the entire time, because you go from seeing Hector shit on Paris, which was an absolute delight, and then you see him like with his family and with his wife and his child, and he knows that he's probably not going to see them again, and all he hopes for is that they're going to be safe. And you just get to see him as this very humanized family family man, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but the warriors are all presented as godlike. They're even described like that, you know, they're godlike, warlike. They're very much described like you would expect a god to be described, whereas the gods are just like described as like high school students. But there is this, you know, transition that we get from Hector the warrior to Hector the family man, who is a human, who has emotions, who has hopes and aspirations for his family and his honor that drives him to continue fighting, even though all he wants is to stay by the side of Andromache and his child. But then you kind of see him fight some more, and then like shit on Paris some more, and then he kills Patroclus. And then he's like, oh yeah, we'll feed his body to the dogs, lol. And then, just when I started kind of disliking him, he gets absolutely mauled by Achilles, and his body is fucking desecrated and humiliated. And then Priam comes to beg for his son's body back. Priam is Hector's father. The whole time, emotionally it was very confusing. Also, it didn't help that I was on my period while I was reading book 24. But anyway, okay, so now that I've told you a little bit about why I love the characters so much, I want to tell you about why I love the story itself, because believe it or not, it's also a fantastic story, and it makes sense. This story was made to entertain. These people who performed the epic cycle could not afford to be telling a boring ass story. It was literally entertainment. We read about their gods and the petty behavior, about the heroes. We get references to mythology. It's in reality very fast-paced and exciting. Of course, there's the war aspect of the Iliad. The Iliad itself has a lot more kind of war aspect than the Odyssey. That's personally something I like. Now, that's a matter of taste. I know that a lot of people will prefer the Odyssey, which I still need to reread. But the war was so incredibly impressive. I mean, it was action-packed, it was gory. I don't remember last time I read anything this gory. Being real with you, like, I don't usually read a lot of action books, so having these very gory deaths, very graphically described in this classics that's perceived as kind of boring, was a very pleasant surprise. I'm not a psychopath, don't report me. I was so amazed by the action, the pace, how seamlessly Homer kind of goes from the gods to the camps to the battlefield, and oh, here is a very graphic description of a death. Another aspect of the Iliad that makes it such a powerful novel that has survived all of this time is because of the themes that Homer covers and writes about. He really explores all of these issues that do not have an expiration date, that we still experience today. He covers honor, hatred, love, the desire for revenge, all of these things that we inherently as humans can relate to. Even though we do not experience these things in the same way, we see Achilles grieve Patroclus, we see Priam grieve the death of his son. Even though your son probably didn't die a bloody death during the Battle of Troy, we can imagine what it's like for Priam. We can imagine what it is like for Achilles to lose a loved one. And we can imagine, you know, the hurt, the anger, the hatred that you might feel when you are mistreated by someone. I think that the one major aspect, obviously, that I took from this book, and that will stay with me for a long time, is just the negative consequences of war, which you would think you wouldn't need a book about, you know, the negative consequences of war to know that war bad. I think that one of the most powerful things that this book did was humanize both sides of the conflict and show that nothing is black and white, and he added so much nuance, and it really makes you reflect on war, not only the consequences but also the act of war. You get the consequences of both sides. Both sides have perfectly good people who suffer, and what for? Okay, what for? What caused the Trojan War, and what did it lead to? This is what drives me absolutely mad. There is all this death and this suffering after just this stupid fucking judgment of Paris, which was just saying, yes, this is the hottest goddess. Homer doesn't just present the dark and dramatic and gritty aspects of war, which he does, obviously, but he also just sprinkles aspects of humanity and humor, some perfectly mundane moments. But anyway, I'm getting off track. This is not an in-depth analysis video, just a wonderful read, and after you're done with it, you're kind of like, where is the end? And it turns out the end is lost forever, so there you go. Alright guys, I'm probably going to end this here because I've been filming for like an hour and I have places to go to. I think I'm done now. I've sufficiently simped. Don't forget to check out Erica's channel, I'll link it below. You should subscribe to my channel as well. for no reason. I'm not a very good YouTuber, but you know what, if you enjoyed and you're still here, chances are you're either already subscribed or you enjoyed this rambling rush of simping enough to still be here. So if you are, please subscribe, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Goodbye.